Michael, many thanks for joining us. Great to speak to you. How's it all going over there?
In LA, it's going great. But I want to make sure it's going great in Portsmouth.
Good. So, as you know, we've had a number of questions from supporters recently. Andrew Cullen, Andy Redman and your son Eric addressed most of these in recent interviews. And you, of course, sent a video message to the Tony Goodall Fans Conference at the end of March. The key topic of conversation that dominates is Pompey preparing for a 7th successive season in the 3rd tier. You, as much as anyone, are determined to move onwards and upwards. So how next season do you best achieve an all-out serious challenge for either automatic promotion or, at the very least, playoffs?
Well, of course, we would love automatic promotion. If that's not to be, we definitely want to be in the playoffs. I think we've demonstrated that desire, whether it's Eric, who has talked about it, or Andrew, or the coaches. Andy Mooney did a podcast I just heard on the BBC, and he did a lot of research. I think everybody knows that. We definitely want to move up. A little frustrated that it's taken this long. We are happy with the infrastructure improvements, more than improvements at Fratton Park, the acquisition of a training facility, and of course the restructuring under Rich Hughes as the person with our new coach, John, to proceed very well in the transfer windows. I think we proved that to a degree in January with 2 really excellent young players. I think, as everybody knows, we're looking to have less reliance on loan players, much less actually, and to develop our young permanent players. We've started that, with Patty and Riley. I think they've proven that we can do it. We want to do it. We want to be promoted. We want to be sustainable at the same time. And I'm pretty confident that, well, I'm an optimist, but I'm pretty confident that we will get there in this 7th season. Too long, granted, but when we get there, we will be prepared, because there was a lot to do in the last 6 years. There was a lot to do in infrastructure, in management, in marketing and ticketing and figuring it all out. We've made a substantial investment, much more than we thought was required. No complaints there. We're long-term owners. We're not looking to get out. We're looking to get up. And we will get there. And when we get there, we want to stay there. And that, I think, will be demonstrated by the way we react to this transfer window.
So, all agreed, the Championship is your immediate target. The last set of accounts for that league make eye-watering reading. Accumulative losses for 24 clubs of £290 million. Net debt of £1.8 billion. An average wage to turnover ratio of an incredible 125%. Still fresh in the mind of so many of what nearly happened to this club just over a decade ago before community ownership. So here's the key question. How do the club operate competitively and sustainably in the Championship?
Johnny, are you trying to scare me out of this? I mean, yes. Those,
Not really.
those are horrible statistics. The Championship is a mess. I think the powers that be are trying to correct that, whether it's the FA, whether it's the government, whether it's the Championship clubs themselves. And I think over time that will be improved. And maybe, the silver lining in this dark cloud of being 6 years, going on a 7th year in League One, is that things are slowly changing. That said, we are not going to put the club in jeopardy, and we are going to be competitive. And one of the reasons I can say that is the new strategy of less reliance on loans and more sustained effort on young players to build up a backlog. And this also includes improving the academy over time, but building a backlog of young, well-developed players from wherever we can find them. So, yes, we are going to be competitive. We are not going to go crazy. We're not taking on any debt. We've never taken on debt. We believe in the long term of the club. Do we think we're going to get promoted like a couple of clubs that moved up? And I think they are the exception, but moved up, although they did lose a lot of money, moving up through League Two, League One, all the way to the Championship and then the Premier League. I don't think we're going to be promoted to the Premier League the year after we're in the Championship League. We got to do it in a sustained, as we've said before, brick by brick layer. But am I scared about the championship? Not really. I think it's a challenge, but I think we can meet that challenge. But I will admit, when you read about those statistics that you just delivered, you have to think twice about how well you operate. And I think we have the right management. We have the right medical management under Rich that is going to be improved in nutrition and all of the things that has to happen. And we're going to have the right players. Now, I am an optimist, and I have been saying since we met 6 or 7 years ago that I thought we would be moving up. I did not think we would be moving up in 1 or 2 years. I certainly thought we'd be moving up in less than 6. But when we move up, we're ready to stay up.
Quickly on to infrastructure. You've spent a significant amount of money on stadium redevelopment, along with acquiring the training ground. You still retain the vision to further develop the North Stand, so increasing stadium capacity and developing new non-match day revenue opportunities. That project alone could come in north of £40 million. What do you envisage as the circumstances where you would give the green light to that project?
I think north is an understatement. I think it's true north, magnetic north, horrible north. I think it's going to be very expensive, but something that we will eventually do. And we will do it because there is demand for it, which we believe there is, particularly if we move up. We'll do it because we have the right CEO who has done this before by developing other usage of facilities on non-game day times, hotels, conference centers, marriage halls, all sorts of things like that. But it is complicated. There are a lot of constituencies that have to come together. We have a railroad bridge. We have, obviously, land we don't own. We have financial considerations. We have where we are in the leagues. But we have to do it. And eventually is not, 100 years away. Eventually is I'm 110 years old, so I'm going to be around for it. But it is a while off. Now, I think, by the way, and I listened to the Andy Mooney, and you should listen to the BBC piece that he did. The one thing he didn't mention was if we hadn't done what we've already done in Fratton Park, our attendance capacity would be like 8,000 or 10,000 because there were so many safety issues that we resolved that are almost unseen before we even got to fixing the South Stand and the North Stand, and now safe standing, and the whole Milton end. All the investment that we've done has not only kept us up to and gotten us to 20,000 safely, but it has set the course for the next goal, which would be the North Stand, new North Stand, or the stand above the North Stand. So, yes, do I want to do the North Stand? Does Andy Cullen really want to do the North Stand? Absolutely. but it is an enormous amount of funding, and there are still other places that we have to fund. We have to fund the academy. The training grounds needs a lot of funding. We have to finish the Milton stand, and then regular maintenance, not including funding for what happens on the pitch. So there's a lot of requirements, financial requirements, none of which will be in debt, but our goals are aligned. It's just not going to happen this season. We have to see where we go. I definitely want that bridge. I'm praying for the bridge. If we don't get the bridge, we can't do any of it. So we got to get the bridge. We got to get railroad to agree, city council, all of that.
Okay, so you've recently announced the takeover of the Portsmouth women's team. What is the motivation behind that?
Well, what better thing to do than on the 125th anniversary of the club than to announce a new and exciting venture for us. Beyond that, women's football is growing around the world, and it's growing specifically in the UK. It's exciting. It's growing more in the big teams up north than it has on the South Coast, and now is the time for us to put our foot on the gas. The women deserve a team just as equal as the men. They're just as exciting. I think as you look around Portsmouth and around the South Coast and elsewhere, young girls are participating. I don't know this, but I suspect just as fast and as much as young boys are. More women are coming to Fratton Park today. We have the management and the infrastructure and the ability to add the women's team to our portfolio. When you watch a women's game, the women are so exciting and talented. And I think it's just great that we're doing it. And we have to do it. We have a responsibility to do it. It'll be fun to do, and it will be rewarding in the end.
Michael, you've already mentioned the academy. A central part of your first speech at Portsmouth Guildhall stressed the importance of the academy. Does this still remain important to you? How pleased are you with their progress? Has your vision changed? And what are the plans right now to bring that vision to fruition?
The answer is yes. I'm very interested in the academy. What I didn't know that many years ago, when I had that first conversation, was the tenaciousness of the Cat 1 categories on the South Coast. They are everywhere. They are scouting 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds. They have all the resources in the world from the big clubs, so it's more difficult than I thought it would be. That said, we really want to attract local kids to end up on our first team. It's not easy. It's been done in the past, and we will get there in the future. But to say it is easy would be disingenuous. I think with Greg Miller coming in, our emphasis on the academy is there. We are constantly looking at it, slowly investing in it. Well, not so slowly, investing in it with a lot of competition around the coast and throughout all of the UK. But I'm encouraged. I will say that when I made the speech at Guildhall, I was not as educated about the problems that one has in an academy at Portsmouth. But I still have the same goals, which is local players playing on the first team are an attraction as well as an obligation for the football club. So the answer is yes. Has that been the slowest thing to be developed in our tenure here? Probably. It doesn't mean we're not interested.
Disney is renowned for being steeped in history, as too is Portsmouth Football Club. Given your appreciation of the past of both, how good is it to be part of the 125 celebrations here, and how important are they to you?
It's an interesting question because when I went to Disney, I didn't know that much about Disney, but my instinct was it was famous, it was historic, and there was a lot of growth potential. But I really didn't know much about it until the day I arrived, which, by the way, I got lost trying to find the studio. Very quickly, I learned about the history, and very quickly, I learned what had to be done. And also, very quickly, I learned it wasn't going to happen overnight. And over my 21 years there, we were able to develop into the powerhouse that it is today. I would say similar to Portsmouth. I knew that my family would be interested in sports. At Disney, we had ESPN. We owned a couple of professional teams. It always seemed like an interesting business, but also one that would be fun for the whole family and rewarding in the end. We looked at a lot of clubs all around the world, including the US. We looked in the UK. We probably looked at 10 different clubs in the UK. And then we showed up at Portsmouth. And it was like unbelievably clear. And as Eric said to me, Dad, it's Portsmouth or nobody. Stop looking. And it was clear, even though we didn't know what we were doing, exactly what we were doing, the fan excitement, the historic stadium, the island city, the fact that it was the only club in this city, the fact that there were generation after generation coming to Fratton Park, the fact that it needed a lot of work, so there was upside and we could actually add value. And the same thing was true of Disney. When I got to Disney, everybody was talking about splitting it apart, giving the hotels to Marriott, giving the film studio to MGM. And we said, no, it's all here. There's hanging fruit here. We should pick it. So the analogy and the comparison to Disney and Portsmouth is real. And maybe it was instinctual. We met Mark Kaplan and Tony and a few others. And it was amazing. And by the way, when they went from League Two to League One, which is really right after we closed the deal, we didn't even know how great that was until we saw all those fans running onto the pitch. And then the next day in the wide open spaces at Portsmouth, did we start to realize what a smart move we'd made. So the answer is, it is kind of similar, and we just have to have patience and we have to do it right. We're going to make mistakes. We got to pick ourselves up and move on. And by the way, sometimes you pick the wrong player and sometimes you pick the wrong movie. And that doesn't mean you're an idiot. That just means you made a mistake. So, or somebody got hurt, or the movie went out during a hurricane. It's not always as simple as arithmetic. Anyway, yes, there is a similarity between the two, and I'm glad they're both historic. And when I went to Disney, we had anniversaries of Disneyland and of Mickey Mouse's birthday, just like we're having the anniversary of the 125th anniversary of the club and the kind of new beginning of the women's team.
So, Michael, after 6 years of ownership, what is now your overall ambition for Portsmouth Football Club? Is it the same overall ambition you had on that night at the Guildhall?
It is the same ambition. I didn't quite know exactly where we were going to go after Guildhall and how it would work and what would happen. I did know 6 years later I'd be 6 years older. That I did know. But the goal of having a successful, historic, fan family-based, family-based club was the goal we had then and the goal we have now. We were not interested in a club that did not have that kind of history. You can start something from scratch. That happens all the time. But somehow, being in the 119th year of a club sound like a good idea.
I'll end as I began, Michael. Many thanks for joining us for this talk, and here's to the next one.
Well, Johnny, thank you for interviewing me. One of the pleasant things about the last 6 years is seeing and hearing all your interviews over the last 6 years. And let me just conclude by saying it really is off the pitch a team effort. It's a team effort with management. It's a team effort in the changing room. It's a team effort on the pitch, in the training facility. It's all a team effort. And our team, which includes, Eric and Anders and Breck and my wife, we are clearly a team. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything that is being done by everybody, including the fans, to move forward in at least the next 125 years.